Hey guys, welcome back to the show, and on this episode, I'm going to be talking about a movie so misguided, so baffling, that it feels less like a movie and more like a dare that got out of hand. I'm talking about Trog, the final theatrical film of Academy Award-winning actress Joan Crawford. Now, what is Trog, and why should you care? Well, look, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but I am going to suggest that you watch this movie because it really is one of those movies that needs to be seen to be believed. Also, if you're a fan of this show and you'd like to become a supporter and get things like early access to videos or your name in the credits, the links for that are in the description. I'm going to talk about why this movie is the way that it is, what specifically makes it such a spectacular disaster, and how an Oscar winner ended up playing fetch with a man in an ape mask in a field in England. Okay, so this is basically what happens. A trio of explorers find the entrance to a cave and decide to dive right in, because why not? Fortune favors the bold, but so does death, and after a while of spelunking and wading through ice-cold water, they find a troglodyte that kills one of them. Joan Crawford plays a scientist in this movie who wants to find this troglodyte, so she goes to one of the explorers to interview him about what he saw.
Perhaps if you tell me exactly what happened, what you saw.
He killed my friend. He was my best friend. I just lent him my leather jacket last week. I mean, he was going on a date and he wanted to look nice, and I was like, don't worry, bro, I got you.
Please try to describe it.
It was brown. Dark brown. And it was sheepskin leather, so it was really soft to the touch. It was really nice. And now I'm never going to see it again.
Cliff, try to describe it.
I don't know. It had those two zippers on the front chest that, you know, they're just decorative. They're not actual pockets. Nobody uses them. But they make the jacket look really cool and badass. And it was an extra large because, well, it was a slim fit, so I had to order a size up. And, you know, just forget it. I'm never going to see it again. I can't ask his family for it back. That is much too awkward. Right? I mean, what's the appropriate amount of time to wait until I can ask for it back? What do you think? Because it is my jacket. Okay, so they go in trying to find this thing, and it comes out body slamming guys. So they capture it, and Joan Crawford starts studying it. And Michael Gough plays the local villain who wants the creature destroyed. That's pretty much all you need to know about the plot. Everything else is a series of escalating creative decisions, each one worse than the last, building toward one of the most unintentionally hilarious climaxes in cinema history. So let's talk about what went wrong, or depending on your perspective, what went beautifully, magnificently right. I gotta talk about the costume because the Trog costume is the single best example of we ran out of budget at the neck that has ever existed in a motion picture. The head is an ape mask, and it's actually pretty decent. It was made by Stuart Freeborn, who built the ape masks for 2001: A Space Odyssey. So from the chin up, Trog looks like a legitimate movie creature. Respectable, even. From the chin down, Trog is just a guy. And I mean that literally. It's just a 1970s British man in a loincloth and fuzzy boots. No fursuit, no prosthetics of any kind, just bare human skin. The color mismatch is so aggressive, it looks like two different films got spliced together at the collarbone. He looks like someone at a costume party who ran out of time and said, you know what, the mask is enough, no one's gonna look below the chin. He looks like someone who started a werewolf transformation and then just gave up at the shoulders. Trog was played by professional wrestler Joe Cornelius, known as the Dazzler, and honestly, he does his best. He commits. He moves like a creature. He sells the physicality, but there's only so much you can do when your entire costume is a head and a pair of slippers, and the rest of you is just you without a shirt and pants. Here's the thing about Trog that elevates it from garden variety bad movie to genuine cultural artifact. Joan Crawford is giving a real performance. She is not phoning it in. She is acting with the full force of a 4-decade Hollywood career, and she is aiming that force directly at a man in a rubber mask, and it is incredible to witness. Crawford won an Oscar for Mildred Pierce. She sparred with Bette Davis. She was one of the biggest names in the history of American cinema, and in this movie, she sits on the floor of a cage playing with dolls alongside a grunting caveman, and she does it with the conviction of someone performing Shakespeare at the Old Vic. Navy SEALs have less commitment than Joan Crawford in this film. This is not a film performance. This is a cautionary tale of what happens when you have an ironclad work ethic and a belief that you can make anything work. The thing is, Crawford's sincerity is what makes the movie work as entertainment. If she sleepwalked through it, if she'd given any indication that she knew this was beneath her, the whole thing would just be depressing. But because she commits fully, the movie becomes something transcendent. It's not so bad it's good, it's so sincere it's hypnotic. You cannot look away from a woman who won an Academy Award who's arguing in a courtroom that a caveman deserves civil rights. You just can't. She also reportedly supplied most of her own wardrobe for this movie. Joan Crawford striding through grimy cave sets in a perfectly coordinated beige ensemble is one of the great visual contradictions in cinema. She looks like she's on her way to chair a board meeting and accidentally wandered onto the set of a monster movie. But if Crawford represents maximum commitment to bad material, Michael Gough represents maximum chaos. Gough would later become known as Alfred the Butler in Tim Burton's Batman films, a role he played with quiet, dignified restraint. But in Trog, Michael Gough is performing with the volume and intensity normally reserved for people who just found out their house is on fire while being attacked by bees. He plays Sam Murdoch, a man whose entire personality is furious about a caveman. At one point, the magistrate has to have him physically removed from the courtroom because he will not stop yelling. He is the angriest man in England, which, given that the entire country runs on passive aggression, is really saying something. But his crown jewel in this film is a scene late in the movie where, after knocking a guard unconscious, breaks into Crawford's lab and just starts trashing the place. This is Michael Gough's real Oscar moment. The man isn't acting anymore. He has achieved a state of pure joy. He is a 60-year-old British character actor smashing beakers and having the time of his life, and it is the most authentic human emotion in the entire movie. Every other actor is pretending to feel things, but Michael Gough is genuinely, visibly happy to be destroying a laboratory. The irony is that he's supposed to be the villain, but he's the most entertaining person on screen every time he appears. You're technically supposed to root against him, but it's kind of hard. I mean, this guy's not a villain, he's just a man living his best life. His best life just happens to involve screaming at municipal hearings and committing breaking and entering. Okay, so Trog is a movie that uses the word science the way a child uses the word magic. It's a catch-all justification for anything the plot needs to happen. Need the caveman to speak? Surgery. What kind of surgery? The kind where you put a thing in his chest that makes him talk. Well, how does that work? You know, science. The device they implant looks like something you'd find in the clearance bin at Radio Shack. It kind of looks like some kind of a cable splitter. So yeah, they put a cable splitter in a caveman's thorax and suddenly he can say words. No explanation of the mechanism, no discussion of how a chest implant connects the vocal cords or anything like that. It's just, we put a thing in him and now he talks. I've seen better pseudoscience in cereal commercials. But the real scientific crime is the recovered memory sequence. At one point, they show him a bunch of slides of dinosaur bones and then inject him with truth serum, and we see his memories of prehistoric life, and those memories are 4 solid minutes of footage from a 1956 documentary called The Animal World. Stop motion dinosaurs fighting, volcanoes erupting, baby dinosaurs hatching. I have no idea why his memories would look like this. You know, shot from multiple angles as if he was witnessing the same event while being in several different places at once. Now, I need everyone to understand the scale of the scientific absurdity here. Dinosaurs went extinct roughly 65 million years before anything resembling a hominid even existed. So even if Trog is 1 million years old, He missed the dinosaurs by 64 million years. That's not a gap, that's an abyss. You might as well throw in him remembering the formation of the solar system while you're at it. I mean, why not? Let's get nuts. And I don't even really understand what the point of this is, because after these Jurassic home movies, he's suddenly able to talk for some reason. The middle stretch of this film is devoted to Crawford's attempt to civilize Trog, and it plays like a montage from the world's most dangerous daycare. She shows him colored construction paper, gives him toys, takes him outside for recess, and every single one of these scenes contains a creative decision so bonkers that it deserves its own museum exhibit. There's a scene where Crawford plays Trog classical music and he becomes calm and peaceful. Then someone switches to this loud jazz music and he loses his shit, rattling the cage, shrieking, full meltdown. And the movie presents this as a real scientific observation. Wow, a creature who has never heard any music before somehow has genre preferences. He's like every dad who ever said, well, that's not real music. You know, for a violent caveman, I wouldn't have imagined his Spotify playlist would be so lame. But yeah, it looks like it would be. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with classical music. I enjoy classical music. It's just that, you know, sometimes you gotta switch it up and not be such a big bitch about it. Then there's the color scene. Trog doesn't like red, but he loves pink. He ends up wearing Crawford's bright pink neck scarf. A creature from the dawn of humanity is accessorizing. And I don't know what the scientific takeaway is here. Neanderthals had a spring palette? The missing link was into pastels? Okay, so at one point, Trog ends up on the loose, and let me just talk about the village rampage because it is a work of art. The funny part is the last 15 minutes of this movie is the only interesting part because Trog basically goes on a rampage and starts murdering people all around town. Picture the most peaceful street you can imagine. A green grocer, a butcher, a little road with a single car. Into this scene wanders a prehistoric creature in fuzzy boots, and what follows, I have to say, I did not see coming. His first instinct is to steal fruit from the outdoor produce display and assault the person who confronts him about it. He's been sentient for about 3 days, and he's already discovered shoplifting and aggravated assault. He's speedrunning the worst parts of human social development. If you give him another week, he'll be committing tax fraud and posting bad takes on social media. So after he kills the grocer, he takes the butcher and impales him on a meat hook like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then a driver honks at him, so Trog responds by tipping the car onto its side, at which point it immediately explodes. The car just detonates into a ball of fire. Trog barely touches this thing and it erupts like a munitions depot. The finale of this movie is, in my opinion, the most Joan Crawford thing that has ever happened in a Joan Crawford movie. There's a scene near the end where Crawford has to enter a cave system that was earlier established as requiring rappelling gear and the fitness of young athletes to navigate, but Joan descends it in a beige pantsuit in no time. The cave that took 3 fit young men almost 5 minutes of screen time to navigate, Joan Crawford clears like she's walking down to the cellar to get a nice Chardonnay. And then she has to confront Trog at his most agitated and dangerous, and she does it with nothing but the sheer force of maternal authority. She doesn't have a weapon. She doesn't have a plan beyond, I'm going to tell him to stop, and he's going to stop. And it works! A violent prehistoric creature obeys Joan Crawford's stern voice because mom energy transcends species, time periods, and the basic laws of self-preservation. Joan Crawford could have talked down a velociraptor with that tone, and it would have apologized. The final shot of the film, which turned out to be the final shot of Crawford's entire theatrical career, is Crawford silently pushing aside a reporter's microphone and walking away from the camera, into the distance. An all-time Hollywood legend, closing out a 40-plus year career, walking away from a dead caveman in a beige pantsuit. It's almost too perfect. This is what cinema is all about, folks. Now let's talk about the behind-the-scenes situation. Trog was directed by Freddie Francis, a 2-time Academy Award-winning cinematographer whose work can be seen in movies like The Elephant Man, Glory, and the remake of Cape Fear, among many others. He later called Trog a terrible film. The producer was Herman Cohen, a B-movie legend responsible for titles like I Was a Teenage Werewolf. Cohen's whole deal was cheap creature features, and Trog was firmly in his wheelhouse. Crawford was paid $70,000 and, as I mentioned before, supplied her own wardrobe. Various people have contradicted each other about her behavior on set. The producer told Fangoria she arrived with 4 cases of vodka and drank from a frosted Pepsi glass. The director called her a very sad old lady who needed cue cards. Joe Cornelius, who played Trog, said she was lovely, professional, and always on time. What's not in dispute is that Crawford showed up and did the work. Bette Davis, who was Crawford's legendary rival, reportedly said that if she'd found herself starring in Trog, she'd have committed suicide, which is the most Bette Davis response imaginable. But here's the thing, Bette Davis didn't make Trog. Joan Crawford did. And Joan Crawford didn't flinch. She walked onto a set where a paunchy wrestler in a rubber mask was her co-star, and she treated it like it was the role of a lifetime. That's not sad. That's not pathetic. You know what that is? That's professionalism so intense that it wraps all the way around the spectrum and becomes its own kind of greatness. The movie was released as a double bill with Christopher Lee's Taste the Blood of Dracula and actually hit #1 at the box office in its opening week. It now appears in the official Razzie Movie Guide as one of the 100 most enjoyable bad movies ever made. Here's why I love this movie and why I think you should watch it. Trog is not so bad it's good. That phrase implies accidental entertainment. You know, like a movie stumbling into enjoyment by mistake. Trog is something much more rare. Trog is a movie where every single person involved, the Oscar-winning star, the scenery-chewing villain, the wrestler in the mask, committed fully to material that did not deserve their commitment. And that total sincerity is what makes it genuinely entertaining. Nobody winked at the camera, nobody played it for laughs. Joan Crawford argued for caveman civil rights in a courtroom with tears in her eyes. Michael Gough screamed at a magistrate with the passion of a man whose entire livelihood was at stake. The movie used stolen stop-motion dinosaur footage as memories and didn't blink. The lesson of Trog is this: it doesn't matter how bad the material is. What matters is how hard you commit. And I don't know if anyone has ever committed harder than Joan Crawford, telling a man in a rubber 8 mask that he's a good boy while playing catch with him in an English meadow. I want to thank all of my supporters on Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, and my YouTube channel members. I want to thank all of you for tuning in, but that's pretty much it for this one, and I'll see you all next time.